Did you know that bad budgeting causes around 82% of SMEs collapses? Poor financial planning impacts business survival, and effective budget management is crucial for SMEs. And of course, those numbers might be lower for bigger companies and corporations, but they still remain a huge main pain point in all industries. Hello, my name is Andre, and today we are going to see how to manage many budgets in Odoo by tracking profitability with the analytic accounting. I will give you some time to scan the pad where you will be able to ask all your questions, and I will have, of course, 5 minutes, as always, to answer all of your questions at the end of the talk. So I'm going to leave it open some more seconds, and then we will start. I hope you are all good. Worst case scenario, keep your question in mind and you will be able to add it to the pad at the end of the talk. So, what are the benefits of budgeting? Well, first of all, it allows a better strategic planning and direction. It allows for more financial control and helps a lot with long-term sustainability. Because, of course, without budgeting, it's way more complicated to remain sustainable on the long term. And finally, but of course not least, it also helps a lot with risk management because you can predict all your budgets and expenses. So, why should we budget in Odoo? Well, in Odoo, you will see that we have multiple dimensions in the budgeting, that we can assess project costs easily and track project spending just as easy as the project costs, and you can keep track of your profitability at any time, be it from the project dashboard or from the budgeting. So let's start and dive in our database. But first of all, you might be wondering something. What is analytical in Odoo? What are analytic plans? What are analytical accounts? And how are they linked to projects? Well, to answer that, I'm just going to go in my database right here, and I will open in the first time the accounting app. And you will see that we have a configuration tab right here. And since we have activated analytic accounting, we have here the analytic account menu with analytic plans and accounts. Let's open the analytic plans. You can see here that we have 3 different plans, and one of them, project, is actually a standard plan of Odoo. It means that whenever you activate analytic accounting, you will have a project plan that will be created, and in that plan, you will see it later, but there will be as many accounts as you have projects unless you decide otherwise. In this case, we have also created 2 other analytic plans, in this case, business line and customer type. But what are analytic plans really? Well, they are like a dimension. They are like a place where we want to be able to track something, so expenses, costs, revenues, whatever. So to track all of that, we need analytic dimensions and therefore analytic plans, and in each of those plans we will have accounts. But how do the accounts work now? Well, we can open here our analytic accounts, and you will see that we have a lot of them, for example, in the business line plan. So you can see that we want to track, for example, our expenses and incomes for everything that is hardware related, everything that is internal, everything that is related to the research and development, in software implementation, and so on. And you can see that we have a column with debit and credit. Those are just all the costs linked to the analytic items that are already existing in Odoo. One last theoretical concept, what is an analytic item? An analytic item is just everything that you do in Odoo that involves a cost or a revenue or basically money. So how is analytic linked to projects now in Odoo? Well, to check that, we're going to go through 3 use cases, and we're going to start with the first use case, which is internal projects. So how can budget help us in our internal projects, and how is this linked to the projects? In this case, our research and development department has a budget that is created at the beginning of the year by our finance team. And we need to be able to track the costs, we need to be able to revise our budget in case we made some mistakes, and we need to be able to link it to our internal projects. In this case, if I go back to my database and I go to the project app, you will see that I have multiple projects and I have one that is internal. In this case, it's our research and development project. Let's open here the dashboard of our project, and we can see that we have a budget. More on top of that, we can see that our budget is actually way overspent because we had forecasted 20,000 euros of expenses in our research and development department, but actually we have spent more than 68,000 euros. So how could that happen? Well, I can easily check that from my project directly with the top bar right here, and I can go and check all the analytic items that are linked to my project. So I can have a list right here of everything that has increased our expenses linked to this project. So we have here mostly timesheets, and we can see that we have a cost for every of our timesheets. So that's nice, but that means that we need to revise our budget. How can we do that? Well, we are going to just click here on our internal R&D 2025 budget. So we open the budget, and here we are brought again in the accounting app, and we can see that we have our budget with its name, a responsible, a period, in this case from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, because of course it's an annual budget, and then we have the budget type. In this case, it's an expense budget type because we only want to track the costs linked to our research and development, but technically we could also use the other budget types, which are both, which calculates both expenses and revenues, or revenues. And why should we do that in an R&D project? I don't know. If you just have sponsors, for example, who like to finance your research, you can use that and increment your budget in R&D. So let's dive a bit deeper here in our budget. You can see that it's quite simple. It only has one line. And here we are brought back to what we have seen earlier, hence the analytical plans. So we have the project, we have a business line, and we have a customer type. In this case, our project is internal, our business line is research and development, and our customer type is not set because it's not linked to any customer. So we can see that we have budgeted here 20,000 euros for this, but what does it mean? It means that any analytic item that actually contains both those accounts, so internal as project and R&D as business line, will impact this budget and this line. So we can just open this, and as I said, you can see that we only have items that are linked to the project and to the business line. So what if I want to revise my budget? Because here we realize that we totally overspent what we had allocated. We can, of course, reset it to draft, change it manually, let's say 30,000 euros, and then open it again, but this is not a good practice, and we have absolutely no traceability of the previous amounts that were budgeted. So what we need to do is actually just click on the Revise button, which is right here, and by doing this, you can see that a new budget is created. I just created here now at 3:37 p.m., and again, I have the same fields as I had before, and I can go and fill them. We have the revision of field that just appeared, that just tells us that this budget is a revised version of the previous one. And now here we can change everything, and we can say, for example, 100,000 euros, because we are still in September, so we might spend yet a bit more than 68,000 euros. And now we can open it again, and you might be wondering what happens to our project that was linked to that budget. Well, let's go back to our project dashboard, and boom, you can see that now it has been linked directly to the new revised budget with the forecast of 100,000 euros, and that we still have 31,000 euros to spend. This is how you can link your budget to an internal project and use it to track your costs and profitability. In this case, just the cost, because we chose the expense type of budget in your internal project. Let's go to the second use case. So here we have small projects. In our company, we love to empower SMEs, and a lot of our clients are actually small businesses. We want to be able to manage every project separately, but we also want to track a global budget for all our SMEs, which means that we want to be able to say, let's say, I want to earn 50,000 euros from my SMEs, but I don't want to specify from which SME I want to gain 5,000 and from which I want to gain more or less. So let's go back to our database right here, and let's go to our project app again. Here you can see that we have two small projects that are tagged SME, and so we can just open the dashboard, and what happens? It is not linked to any budget. Well, I can always check my profitability for this specific project thanks to the profitability view of this dashboard. So I can see all the timesheets that have been done. I can see all the costs, all the revenues that are linked to this specific project. But as you can see, it is not linked to any budget. And how come is it that it is not linked? Well, let's go into the accounting app once again, and let's go here on accounting and check our analytic budgets. You can see here that we have a nice view of all the budgets that we have created. And you can see that we have multiple budgets. We have budgets that were revised, budgets that are open, and we also have budgets that were done because they were of the previous year. Let's open the SME 2025 budget and check how it is done. Well, in this case, it's done in the opposite way of our previous budget, which was just for the internal project. That budget had one line that was containing a project and a business line account. In this case, it's just containing a customer type. And that's why we created this dimension. It was just to be able to make the difference between the SMEs and the large accounts, as well as the internal projects as well. In this case, this means that every line that is linked to an SME, be it in an invoice, in a bill, in timesheets, in materials, or whatever, all of that will be tracked right here in our budget. And we can also notice something that is a bit weird compared to the other view that we had. Because here, the committed amount and the achieved amount are actually not the same. Well, what happened? Let's see. I can audit by clicking here, and I can check what happened. So we can see that we have sold some starter packs and that everything has been achieved. But here we can see that for our second project, for the small company, we actually have something that is still ongoing. We have committed 750 euros, but we still haven't achieved them. So how can I know what is linked to this line? Well, nothing is easier. I can just click here, and I will be brought to my purchase order. And here I can see that I have indeed a purchase order that has already been validated. And so you can see that on the analytic distribution of the computers that you're buying, there is this line SME, so it will be linked to our project, but actually there is no bill connected. So let's just upload a bill. Here, we wait for a while. Here, our bill has been uploaded, and now we can confirm our bill. Oops, I forgot something here, actually. I forgot to put the quantity to 1. Of course, if I have a bill for 0 computers, that will not impact my analytic accounts. Here we have put our 1 computer. And we can go back to the analytic budget, go to SME 2025, and we can see that now the committed and the achieved amounts are exactly the same. So how it works is just that if you have a purchase order that is validated, of course you know that you're going to spend that money, so it will impact the committed amount, but you still haven't spent it, so it is still not achieved. So this is also how we can track budgets globally for small projects. In this case, we said SMEs, but it can also be small projects where you only want to be able to have one big budget for that business line or that customer type in this case. Now, let's go to our third and last use case, bigger projects. There is cases where we have huge customers, and those customers usually require a very long implementation, and we need to be able to track the budgets per quarter, and we need, most importantly, to have separate dimensions in one project. For example, I can have multiple business lines in the same project. Let's see how this works in Odoo. I will go back once again to my project app, open it, and here you can see that I have a big project in our large account pipe with a lot of allocated hours, and we can see here that our budget is overspent thanks to this small widget. But let's dive into it and open once again the dashboard. So you can see that we have our reporting dashboard. Once again, since it is a billable project, I am able to check all the revenues and costs of my project, which is great, but I don't really have the detail. I mean, of course, I know what has been timesheeted and what is linked to vendor bills, but I don't know what is for hardware, what is for services, what is for implementation, and so on. So what can I do to solve that? I can just create a budget that we will open right here, in which we are going to put multiple lines, actually. So in this case, you can see that we have added one line per business line that will be linked to our project. So we have the software development, we have the software implementation, and we have strategy and consulting, and so on. And as you can see, once again, here, our budget type is of both, which means that we will track both incomes and expenses linked to this project. But we were also saying something about being able to track our costs per quarter, maybe. So let's open the budget report. Actually, not the budget report. Let's go directly to the accounting app, and let's go to reporting here. And now the budget report for all our projects. And here we can see that we can have our separation by quarter and by business line, but also per project. So in this case, all I need to do is just say that the project needs to be, whoops, this one, it didn't work, but we can just go and check it. What was the name? Yeah, of course, it was called in another way. So if I check the wrong name of the project, this will not work. But here you can see that we have our implementation with everything that has been budgeted, everything that has been committed, and everything that has been achieved for every month, in this case every quarter. And once again, we can have the total right here, where we are able to see everything that we have spent. And what is great with this graph is that I can, of course, just click on any line, let's say this one, and have all the detail of every analytic entry that was done linked to this project. So let's go back to our project right here. If I want to communicate all of this to my customer, nothing is more easy. I just need to create a new project update right here, and I can say, okay, September update for OXP. I can manually change the advancing here of our project. We can say that we are still on track. We still have a lot of time to spend. And then here you can see that automatically, of course, I can change the summary and add more stuff, but automatically it has already added everything that is linked to our revenues, everything that is linked to our expenses, and also the budget with a small sentence that says that we have spent 60% of the budget and that there is still a lot remaining to meet our goal. So this is also a great way to communicate your information to your customers. And that's it for how you manage budgets for bigger projects as well. What did we learn today? Well, we learned that budgeting in Odoo is quite easy, that it is super fast. We just need to put the right analytic dimensions and accounts on all our lines. But there is still something that I didn't show you, because we might also want to automate stuff. You might be wondering how the timesheets were linked to each line. Well, that is super easy. If I go back here to my SME starter pack, I can go to the settings of my project, and I can go once again on the setting tab. And here you will see that I have a small analytic tab. And here I have my project, and I have all my other plans, so business line and customer type. In this case, you can see that this project wasn't actually linked to the correct customer type. So what happens if I do right now a timesheet? Whoops. Let's create a new timesheet from here. I worked hard for 3 hours. Great. If I go back to my task right here, and I go back to the analytic items, I will see that it is still linked to the SMEs because this was set actually on the sales order. So, of course, we can change it directly in the settings of our project, but if our task is linked to the right sale order line, it will already compute all of that automatically. So, you have also seen now that everything is well integrated to the project and that it is automated. But once again, in case it is not linked to any sale order line, you can just add it manually to your task and your project. Well, that was it for me. I hope you have questions and you learned something interesting. I will let you scan the QR code, and thanks for listening.
Thank you for the presentation.
When working with freelancers, I am not adding them as internal users. Can we assign tasks for portal users? And if so, can they add their timesheet and costs? And how do we take this into account for the budget?
You can assign them as portal users. I don't know if it is doable on my local database, but basically what you would need to do is just share the project right here and add the access mode as edit with limited access if you only want to share some tasks, or edit if you want to share all the tasks, and then add them not as assignees, but you can still add them to the task, and they will be able to modify a lot of the task, but they will not be able to timesheet because otherwise no one would need users if everyone could timesheet on the project. So unfortunately, you can add them to the project, they can modify the tasks, they can write stuff, add tags, change the dates, and so on, but they are not allowed to timesheet. So usually what customers do is just use APIs or use like a template to import the timesheets at the end of the week, of the month, of the day, or whatever.
Why is analytic distribution stored as JSON?
It's linked as JSON because if I go back here to my sale order, I can decide a certain percentage that I want to allocate to each analytic account. And so we need to also have that information. So I cannot just say that the line is linked to the hardware account. I need also to specify, in the case here, I want to only connect 50% of my line to hardware and maybe 50% of my line to MISC. I need to be able to track the fact that it's 50% each. So that's why it's in JSON, because we need to have both the name of the account and the amount in percentage that is allocated.
Clear. What AI tools can be used to calculate budgets?
That is a good question. I personally still haven't started working with AI on budgets, but there is something else that is also super interesting. It's spreadsheets to manage budgets. And for that, I encourage you to stay 3 more minutes here, because my colleague Hugo will be talking about how to manage budgets with spreadsheets. And I really think it solves most of the use cases once you know how to use spreadsheets correctly. So in the first step, I would say that AI might not be necessary right now, but later on, of course, maybe next year, I will be able to present you a talk on how to use AI to manage your project better.
How to budget multi-year projects and see details per year?
Well, that's more or less what we did here. It's just that in this case, I have created a budget. Where is it here? I have created a yearly budget for my customer. I haven't created a second one, but I could have done it. And basically, you just need to change the periods right here. No, it was this one. I didn't put actually a date for this specific project, but I did it for the budget, but I did it for the SMEs. It's the same principle here. You could have one project with multiple budgets. I can just create here a second budget for the same customer and just make it start last year or the next year, and both will be actually appearing on the project dashboard.
Could you please show the best way to create a pivot of a new custom budget grouping for analytic plan as first level and analytic accounts as second level?
Well, for that, the question was about the budget, best way to create a pivot of a new custom budget, grouping for analytic plan as first level and analytic account as second level. Well, for that, technically, you could do it from the budget report right here by changing just the filters. So by default, we have the project, but here we can just add a group by. So here it was analytic plan and then analytic accounts. So we can group by custom group. Yeah, but this is the reporting view. It's not doable on this specific view, but actually I think if you just go on the more general view of your budget, you can do that and just select then the budget that you want to check.
How can I deduct expenses from the budget? Also, how can I deduct expenses from the project budget? I see that in the dashboards, it only deducts PO costs.
It only deducts PO costs until you have an invoice or a bill. So, I mean, of course, an invoice is for incomes, but in the case of expenses, there is multiple steps. You need to, I don't remember which one they are, and I don't have, unfortunately, the expense app on this database, but you need to go really to the end of the expense flow. And when you, I think it's like validate the payment or whatever, in that case, it will go and impact everything.
All right, that was the last question. Thank you all for your questions, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, guys.